In the next 60-ish minutes, I'm going to show you how to build a lead generation machine that sits passively on the internet as a web directory. No coding, no monthly fees, just pure automation. This directory can pull in thousands of articles from RSS feeds and process them into SEO-friendly pages. And the best part is I'm going to show you how to do this prompt by prompt so you can vibe code it on your own IDE software like Cursor or VS Studio Code. So instead of just a how to use some software as a service AI platform out there, you're going to learn the ins and outs of building your own apps that you can have complete control over. No token limits beyond the AI you need to pay for like Claude Code to do the vibe coding for you. This is a brand new skill set that's in huge demand. Not to mention you can use this educational tutorial to build something valuable and generate leads for your business. I'm going to walk you through everything you're going to need, including the free services that you will not have to pay for. And then we'll go step by step from creating our PRD to scaffolding our project and designing our database schema. And don't worry if you don't know what those mean, because the AI does. We'll create a data pipeline that feeds into a front end that we can design as easily as by sharing screenshots with our AI agent. We will debug and finally deploy our directory. And in the process, you're going to gain a great understanding of vibe coding as a non-coder without no-code platforms. So grab a stimulating beverage and let's get started.
In a world where builders depend on others' tools, paying endless subscription fees, trapped by no-code limitations, one explorer was about to discover true freedom. Through the digital frontier, he learned to harness the raw power of AI to serve his vision, pure intention-driven development. Now he stands free in the digital realm he created, his own empire.
Okay, so let me show you what I built here and what I'll show you how to vibe code the infrastructure for in this video. This is a very simple, clean, elegant feed. These are all articles scraped from a handful of RSS feeds that I've specified, and then a data pipeline basically creates an AI summary. It creates tags, it categorizes them, and then it throws them onto the website. So then a page looks something like this. I'm working on making the AI summary and the content a little less thin so it can be more valuable, especially for SEO. And because I am trying to generate a lot of leads here, I've got email forms throughout. And I really just think this is a good MVP to build off of. Obviously, this isn't crazy or anything, but I do think with the right strategy and some new features I want to implement that can make this more personal for the user, that this could be kind of a cool website. We can shuffle articles there, and there's only 14 feeds in here. I want to add like a system, and I even want to create an N8N workflow that would create new RSS feeds based on GitHub repos, YouTube videos, trending Reddit topics, X tweets, etc. So this is just the beginning of this next iteration of the Vibe Builders AI project. And yeah, it was just kind of fun. And these native ads here are basically just going to be blog posts. I've got some AI generated SEO content here on each category page, but I am going to split this up and insert them in close to these native ads just so it's a little less. I just don't like how that looks right now. And obviously we need that content for SEO. So I'm going to get creative here because I like just the minimal elegance. So I'll start with showing you what tools I used if you want to try out this technique, and then I'll walk you through the prompts of how I did it. So let's run through the software and services we're going to use for this AI-powered RSS directory. We're going to use Visual Studio Code as our IDE. It's going to look a little something like this. It's a lot like Cursor. We have a file browser explorer over here. We have a agent over here. And then for our agent, we're going to use Roo Code. RooCode.com is how you can easily find this plugin. As long as you have Visual Studio Code installed, you can just click install up here. And I'm going to show you why Roo Code is awesome in just a little bit, but I'll give you a hint. It has to do with these architect code orchestrator modes down here. Now, Roo Code is just the plugin for your agent. What you're really going to need is an actual API provider. I recommend Claude Code because for around $20 a month, you can get pretty good usage, and it also gives you access to Claude Desktop. Otherwise, you want an API key from OpenAI, Anthropic, XAI, Grok, or whatever AI service you want. But Claude Code does a really good job. A lot of people really like it. That's what I recommend. Next up, you're going to need a Turso.tech account. This is free. We are going to use the free account. This should be more than enough for what we're trying to build. It is a very generous free tier. Then you are going to need a Netlify account. We will also be using the free tier. You do not need anything beyond the free tier. Next up, you will need OpenAI API keys from platform.openai.com. You click over here to API keys, create new secret key, give it a name, and we'll be ready to process our RSS feed entries to present on our directory. Now, I am not a big OpenAI user. I prefer to use open source whenever I can, so I will actually be using Venice AI's API key, but don't worry, it's going to be all the same for you. Venice AI is completely compatible with OpenAI's API. You just have to change the base URL. So in this video, you will learn a little bit about how that works as well, but you can choose if you want to use OpenAI or Venice. I will tell you, if you buy some of the Venice token and stake it, you will get daily API credits that you do not have to keep paying for. And I think this is really neat, especially if you're trying to build something like an AI-powered RSS directory that needs to update itself every day. A little bit of investment in the beginning with the service, I believe, is really cool. Anyway, there's a link down below if you want to use Venice AI. It's a cool tool to check out, if nothing else. So now that you've got Visual Studio Code installed with Roo Code, you've got your Turso account, you've got your Netlify account, and you've got your API keys, let's get started. So let's jump into our IDE here. This is Roo Code inside of Visual Studio Code. Now, the first thing we need to do is make a new folder. So the way I do that is I click New File, I just make a file, and then I just save it. So when I run Apple S, I make a new folder, and I'm going to call it AI-powered RSS directory. Click Create. Boom. We saved this file in there. Now I'm going to click the little file icon over here to open the Explorer, and we have not yet opened a folder, which means we have no project open. So what I'm going to do is open the folder that we just made for that untitled file. And now here we go. We have our IDE ready to go. And I don't need this file, so I'll actually delete this because I'm a little bit OCD sometimes. So the next thing we want to make sure we do is select our provider inside of Roo Code. I have Claude Code set. If you have a Claude Pro account for $20 a month, you can use Claude Code. It's simple enough. You can also use the Anthropic API and put an API key in. You can also use the same OpenAI key that we got earlier from platform.openai.com. You could also try your luck with Venice by using a custom base URL with the OpenAI provider, using api.veniceai's URL instead of OpenAI. However, I don't necessarily recommend coding with open source models because OpenAI, Gemini, and Anthropic just do such a darn good job. So I'll keep this at Claude Code. We've got Claude Code ready to go. I press save. Now, I mentioned earlier, why is Roo Code so cool? Well, if we go down here, we see these modes. You'll see we have architect mode, code mode, ask, debug, and orchestrator. And what these modes do is define a certain role for your IDE AI agent here to help you through the whole process. So if I click the settings here, we'll see this is basically the system prompt for the architect mode. You're an experienced technical leader who's inquisitive and an excellent planner. You gather information and you get context to create a detailed plan, which the user will review and approve before they switch into another mode. So we see when to use this one. Short description, plan and design before implementation. We got instructions for the mode. So all of this is sent to Claude Code through Roo when we prompt our agent. So when I say we are going to make an AI-powered RSS directory, let's start figuring out the infrastructure. Now, I'm not really going to send that, but for example, if I did, it wouldn't just send this to Claude Code. It would actually send all of this. You are Roo, an experienced technical leader who's inquisitive. Your goal is to gather information so the user can review it before we implement a solution. Number 1, do some information gathering. Number 2, you should also ask the user clarifying questions. Number 3, once you gain more context, break down everything into a to-do list. So you're actually getting all of that stuff. And this is built into Roo Code. Cursor will do this, but you have to set it up manually. Cursor is a bit more for developers and people that really know what they're doing. But if you're just a non-coder like me who just likes to build and wants to use AI to the best of its ability, then Roo Code has this built in. It's baked into the plugin. Check out the code mode. You're a highly skilled software engineer with extensive knowledge in many programming languages. Now, this is a simpler mode. We don't actually have any custom instructions there. If we go down to ask mode, you know you're a knowledgeable technical assistant. You can analyze code, explain concepts, and access external resources. If we go down to orchestrator mode, You are Roo, a strategic workflow orchestrator who can coordinate complex tasks by delegating them. Okay, so you see now why Roo Code is really powerful, because it helps bake in those system prompts and specific instructions to your IDE agent as you build. All you got to do is make sure you're in the right mode. And guess what? It will even know when to change modes and confirm with you. And half the time, if you have this little mode auto approve activated, it will change modes without even needing to ask you. It will be automatically able to do that. Now, I recommend messing around with what you want to give access to Roo Code for. You can just toggle these on and off. I pretty much let it auto approve everything except questions, because when it asks clarifying questions, I want to make sure I give my human in the loop feedback and not just assume it's going to make the best decision for me. I still want to use my human noggin here. Okay, we're going to start building. If you want to follow the prompts I'm using, you have two options. Number one is, if you're a super beginner, check out the AI Captain School. There's a free 7-day trial. The conversation-driven development is included in that trial. And in this course, there are, I don't know how many videos, a lot, where it'll show you how to set up your computer for vibe coding. It'll give you an overview of how prompting works for vibe coding. It'll show you the 4-phase vibe coding approach we've been working on in here. And then finally, it'll give you your first vibe, your beginner challenge. You'll be able to follow along in here, prompt by prompt, and build a basic project that will give you a foundation before we build an RSS powered directory, okay? But if you are a bit more experienced, you can follow the prompts that I use in this video here in the AI powered RSS directory course. But you can follow all these prompts to start building your own. Not to mention, there's a whole lot of other stuff you can learn in this school. If you're a non-coder, I also recommend the Architectural Literacy Crash Course to learn everything you need to know about how code works, how the command line works, API, Git, dependencies, etc. This is all super important to learn how to build on your own with AI without being dependent on these other platforms that just want to charge you more money and change their services on you when you least expect it. Okay, so that's enough about the school. There's a link below, 7-day free trial. I'll see you there. Let's build. So before we start vibe coding, we want to think like a product manager. Even though we're not product managers, every good build starts with a clear vision, and a product requirements document or a PRD is going to help us create that vision that can be communicated with our AI copilot. So I'm going to make sure I'm in architect mode here. And honestly, you could do this in Claude or ChatGPT if you want. And our PRD prompt is basically saying we want to create a comprehensive product requirements document for our niche. It's an RSS aggregation site for the AI building community. And it basically is saying include all this stuff that we need to explore before we build this. Now, what I'm building is an RSS directory, right? For people that want to build with AI, just a compilation of everything going on for this specific niche that I feel like I'm into, which is creating content with AI, marketing, faster workflows, things like that. So basically we're saying, let's make this PRD. I have pretty in-depth PRD videos on this channel that you can check out. But really, we got to get this document started, even if it's not perfect. This isn't going to be the craziest project, but it does help to have what we can call a single source of truth for referencing if something ever goes awry or we find ourselves astray. So this prompt is really about asking the AI to go through our whole strategy here. Like, not even just like, how are we going to build it? But what's the problem statement? How do we solve it? Who is this for? Who are the user personas? Who are the users that's going to use it? What are the features, right? This is like a full PRD here. And to that end, now we have a question from Roo Code's architect mode. Should we focus on curating AI-specific content like AI tool releases, tutorials, research papers, or building micrographs with AI? And so I have a list here of the things that I really want this directory to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and give it that list. Who's the primary audience? Non-technical creators using AI tools. Throughout this video, I'll sprinkle in why I like Roo Code for beginners, but it'll also show you the context length. And you don't get this in Cursor, at least when I stopped using it. So you have a 200,000 token context limit, and we reached 47,000 here. And when you get higher up, you're going to get worse and worse results, especially if it goes past 200,000. And Cursor just ends up charging you more for 200,000, and the whole thing is just weird. But Roo Code just uses it as it is with the provider's APIs. So I like how Roo Code shows you that that's going on. It even shows you how much you're spending which is cool. Now I haven't really spent that because I'm using Claude Code, so I'm just paying a flat subscription fee. Now you can see it created this prd.md file for us. We'll see it's huge. Okay, we got a huge table of contents. I'm not going to lie, this is probably far beyond the scope of what I need to build this, but this is good practice and I recommend getting used to it. So, I mean, especially this number 5, technical requirements, that's really what we're going to need for our build. So we have an executive summary here of what we're building. A specialized RSS aggregation platform designed for non-technical creators and entrepreneurs who want to stay current with AI-powered tools, workflows, and business opportunities. Woo! All right, problem statement. Solution: create a centralized platform that aggregates, curates, and contextualizes AI content specifically for non-technical creators. So then we got our target persona, and I'm not really going to go through all of this because I really just want to show you how to vibe code. So here in the technical requirements section, which is important, we want to make sure it's using what we want, which essentially is Turso and Netlify here. So that's awesome. And now we have our PRD. And so you will see later on where we might reference the PRD. In fact, this database schema we will be referencing because we need all this stuff in our database to make sure we display all of the data right. Okay, so let's move on and let's start building our infrastructure, the boilerplate. So our first step here is to initialize the project. We're going to use Next.js 14. We're going to call it AI Builders Directory. And in this prompt, we're just specifying what we want it to do. I'll paste that into Roo code here, which I'll also call my IDE agent. And essentially, this is just creating what's called the boilerplate. We can manually set up a Next.js app, Tailwind CSS, TypeScript configuration. We can set all that up manually, but it's a lot easier to just have your AI set up that configuration. So as that's running, just take a look. Notice how specific we're getting here. And we could get more specific depending on our goals and depending on our knowledge of what we want. But we're specifically saying Next.js 14. We're saying we want Tailwind CSS. We're saying we want to use TypeScript. These are not necessarily defaults with Next.js, but the more context we give our AI IDE agents, the better decisions it will make. And because we've already specified that we need to parse RSS feeds, it's already thinking about how to best build the infrastructure for our directory. Now, you'll see here that Roo wants to use a tool, an MCP server called Context7. Now, what is that? Here in Roo code, you click ... you click MCP servers. Model Context Protocol allows your AI to basically use tools directly. Now, this isn't a video about MCP servers, but notice I have them enabled and I have some added here. Context7 basically is an MCP server so your AI can find the documentation for any programming language or open source software or whatever that's available online. Context7 finds the documentation for the libraries of code your AI is going to use. You can click this MCP Marketplace button to find Context7 and install it. A GitHub MCP server, for example, would allow your AI to manage your GitHub repository, which we'll get into a bit later. File system would allow your AI to manage files on your computer, etc., etc. So that's a little bit on MCP servers. Now it's asking for permission to use this MCP server. And you'll see here in auto approve, we already gave it permission to use MCP, but it needs to get permission just for this round. So I'm just going to click always allow, and then it'll automatically approve it. And then we got an error, probably because it took so long for me to demonstrate what MCP servers are. So it's going to run through that again. So now Roo code has made a to-do list with all this good stuff that it's got to do to basically create our boilerplate. And Roo code also impresses me because now it's asking me questions. Does this structure and technology stack meet your requirements? Are there any specific aspects you'd like me to modify or elaborate on before proceeding? And basically, I would just click this normally, and you see how this means it's going to switch to code mode. But I just want to make sure it knows that we're going to use Turso for the database, which is SQLite compatible, and we're going to deploy on Netlify. This may or may not actually matter, but I find it's important just so it knows early on that this is the stack we're going to use, because sometimes it does make assumptions. So let's send that on. And notice we're still in architect mode, but not for much longer. And now as you see, it's letting me know we're ready to switch to code mode. Architecture planning is complete. So now it's going to run some commands here. Now I have given it approval to execute certain terminal commands, but in general, you always have to give each exact command permission per project. So a lot of times you'll just find yourself having to click this anyway. So this is just using the Node Package Manager to install all this good stuff for our directory. And it opened a terminal down here. It's asking, is it okay to proceed? And now we'll just watch it work and see how it's got this. It's initialized the project and it's now moving on to adding Tailwind CSS for styling, and it's just going to keep going for a while. And once that's done, we will have the basic foundation for our infrastructure. So this is going to take time. I'm going to shut off the camera and we'll tune back in when this is done. So you'll notice as it builds, look at all these folders we suddenly have. Remember, we started off with nothing. It did make a new folder, which sometimes can be kind of annoying because I could have just built it in the parent folder, but we even got some icons. Public. We got our layouts. So we talk about this in the AI Captain School, but like this package.json, that's showing your dependencies. So this is where context 7 comes into play, is all these dependencies are libraries of code basically that we're going to use. And sometimes it's good to know how they work because not all of these libraries have been trained into these AI models. So that is the package.json file. You can learn more about dependencies in the AI Captain School. In the Architectural Literacy Crash Course, dependencies is here at the end, module 6, and you can learn all about how that works. And this has been going for quite a while here. Oh, wow, we're only there. So we'll let it keep going, baby. Okay, boom. It is done. We've got that to-do list updated. And now we can see Roo gives us, let's make this bigger. Roo gives us a whole rundown of what happened. So it created the framework. It started working on the backend. Gives us a project structure here, which we already took a look at over in the File Explorer. And it's even got API endpoints, which we will have to explore soon. So now that that's done, we're ready to move on to the next prompt. So the first thing to do is to start a new conversation. Assuming all this is good, we don't need to move on. Let's start a new conversation. So now we'll copy our next prompt here where we want to design a Turso SQLite database schema. Now we already have the schema designed and we're going to reference that here. And let me show you how that's done. So I'll paste that in my new conversation here. And you'll see that I've tagged our PRD file. And the way to do that is tag it at AI, whatever. And if you can't find it for whatever reason, you drag it over. You drag that in there. And now you see, follow the database schema inside our prd.md file. So now let's do it. Let her rip. Now what we're doing here is the data layer. An RSS directory might sound simple, but there are still design decisions to make. And we're going to do that with the help of AI. Once again, don't worry if you don't really know what you're doing because the AI knows a lot more and all it needs to ask you is how you want the final output to present itself, to look like, to feel. And so in this case, how should the database work? How do we track feeds versus articles? How do we store the AI classifications? This is where we get all that figured out. Roo has a question. The current schema has basic feeds and articles tables with some AI features, but the PRD, this is why we do the PRD, it's much more comprehensive, including the AI classification, user preferences, tool database, and community features. Okay, great. So we want the complete one here. All right, we're not messing around. Let's create the complete one. And now everything is ready here. We've got our to-do list, and you can see how it automatically switched to code mode. It even says here, Roo wants to switch to code. So let's do it. So what we see in this database architecture is exactly what we want. It's separating concerns between feeds and articles. It's adding fields for our AI enhancements. And it's even thinking about performance with proper indexes. This is what we want. Boom. So our database schema is ready to go, and we've followed the PRD requirements. We've got sample data in there, and it's given me the quick start to actually run the database and everything. So I'll show you a little secret for running these commands. npm install, which installs all the dependencies, but before pressing enter, we can do an and, double and sign, and then also run the database setup, which will run the migrations and the seed data, and npm run db studio. This will now get our database all ready for our directory. So it'll look something like this as it goes. You may or may not have issues that you will have to debug. When you have issues like this, simply copy it and paste it into a new conversation until you don't get any errors. Even though we got mostly completed here fine, ideally we don't have problematic triggers that stick around. So once you solve that, we're ready to move on. So I'm going to start a new conversation, and let's get our next prompt. And this is the third and final prompt in our basic project setup, right? This has already taken quite a while, right? To just get our project going. So I'm going to paste that in. And we're saying we want to create our environmental configuration. And this is going to be a .env file, which you're going to see soon. .m.example. And it's going to make sure we have everything covered as far as which API keys do we need, what's going to happen with Netlify, etc., etc. Okay, so the environment configuration is ready. We've got a .env.example file. A .env file basically holds all your sensitive data and variables, such as API keys, things that you want to keep private for your web app to use, you put in a .env file. So we're going to be putting our database URL in here, OpenAI keys, base URL, etc., etc. And so now I just want to, there's two things I'm going to do here. The first is kind of important. I've added this to the prompt. We want to include RSS feed URLs here in the .env. And the reason for that is because, like, where else are the RSS feeds going to come from? We're not going to build an admin dashboard for this project. We just need a place to put the RSS feeds and make it easy enough to change. So I'm going to put that in here. Make sure to remove this include as many as you'd like. So yeah, now we're going to also add a utility function that's going to parse and validate these URLs from the variable. So let's do that. I've used Claude in the background here to do some deep research. I use this research button, find RSS feeds that cover building online with AI for these things. So here we have, I guess, 37 sources here, and these are all RSS feeds. So I'm just going to say now, make a list of each RSS feed with their name and URL. And there is a chance I'll probably be removing some of these. And I'm going to check them out too. Let's check out Mark Tech Post. Little too much for this purpose. Yeah, too much there. So I'll be removing that one. Unite.ai. Not what I'm looking for, so I guess it didn't really understand the AIsummer.com. Yeah, so I'll probably remove all of these. I'm not going to keep any of those. So anyway, find your RSS feeds, and then we're going to add that to the .env file. I'm going to go ahead and put them in here. These all seem to be good ones. So yeah, I'm just going to copy these. That's all I really want here for now. And we'll shoot that off so we make sure we can parse and validate our RSS URLs. Now, if we word wrap here, which is Option Z, we can see how it made a list of all the URLs here under RSS feed URLs. All right, so it updated our .env file with RSS feed URLs and updated some files to make sure it's managing the RSS feed well. Great. So now we're going to start a new task and move on to phase 2. And let's head into phase 2 here. We're going to copy prompt 4 which is to build an RSS parser function. And to put it simply, an RSS parser is just going to read the URLs and put the data into formats that we need for our app. That's basically it. So I'm in architect mode here, and yeah, we're going to send that off. Basically, RSS parsing, if I show you, here's an RSS feed. This is like my Substack, and basically it's just a bunch of XML. It's just a bunch of XML, and it could be different based on different feeds. So our parsing function is just going to make sure it can handle any edge cases and essentially read our curated feeds. So now we have a question. What do we want to do for failed RSS feeds? Should failed feeds be retried individually? Let's do that. That looks good. Now, this is where we start getting into the fun, real directory stuff. What's the metadata we want? Basic metadata, title, description, language, last updated. Language, last updated, feed type, image, logo. I like the image, author, info, category. I like the extended metadata option. Thank you, Roo Architect. I guess we'll just use multiple strategies. I'm assuming that will be the best. We got our to-do list. And this is what I love. Roo Code makes these diagrams. So let's look at this real quick. It's going to go from the RSS feed URLs into our parser. It's going to fetch everything. It's going to retry if it needs to. It's going to parse the date. It's going to extract the metadata from the feed. It's going to standardize and validate the articles into standardized articles. Beautiful. All right. So now it looks like Roo already jumped into code mode. And it's going for it. Let's go. Okay, so we've got our core features implemented with the RSS stuff. Let's move on. We're basically going to be testing this all out at the end. Start a new task. And our next prompt is integrating our AI API. So I'm pasting this in here, and we're going to use Venice AI. And there's something important to do here. And that is to go back to our .env.example file. And what I want to do is add something like this. Venice model name, right? And same with that. OpenAI model name. Because we want to choose which model to use for this job. So, let me delete all this. I am going to go into architect mode. And I'm going to say here at the end, first off, add OpenAI model name and Venice AI model name to the .env.example and our service, because we want to make sure we're using the right model. If you want to use OpenAI, just specify here that you're using OpenAI. You can even use Claude, really, and just add in the Claude configuration in here. Okay, that's simple enough. So let's do this now. We'll send that off, and it's basically going to create our processor for taking the RSS feeds and turning it into descriptions, summaries, whatever, and all the data that's going to be displayed on our RSS directory. This is where it gets fun. And this is where I really love AI, like to manipulate data. It's just like so cool to build these systems, and you can totally vibe code it all. In the AI Captain School, you can see the Python web scraping command center. And this is for vibe coding your own Python web scraper for like a real directory, not an RSS one. And then here in vibe processing, you can see AI-powered data processing. I don't know. It's just magic. Like, we want to create analyses of our data, and we can tell it to find, like, we can essentially tell the AI to let us know how sophisticated this business looks based on the reviews, the website, and all this data we scrape. And vibe coding just makes it so accessible. We have a question here. Use Venice AI for primary classification, cost effective. Venice AI supports various models. Yeah, we will use OpenAI for fallback. Yeah, no, let's just use Venice AI exclusively. I want this to be a Venice-powered app, baby. Should the classification system use different prompts or processing approaches for each type, or prefer a unified approach that can handle all types with a single classification? Yeah, we're going to do specialized prompts for each content type. And now you can see it's added more variables to our .env file. So it's chosen the names, it's chosen the Venice AI model to use, OpenAI model to use. And depending on which API you're going to use, I'm using Venice, so I can click this current models page. OpenAI, Anthropic, they all have a similar page. And you can just kind of see what it's good at, what are its traits, how expensive it is, so what might we want to use. I'm partial to lean towards Venice reasoning, but that could get expensive. I really like Llama for an open source model, but Qwen is also growing on me. Even though, and I think Venice large is Qwen, Venice small is Qwen. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with Llama 3.3 70B. So I'll go back to the .env file, and I'll just put that in there. And before we go live, we will definitely need to add in our API keys, but we don't need to do that yet. And we're getting a project built here, huh? Going to be a very interesting project. This just goes out to Dino. Shout out to Dino in the school community. Dino really wants to build something like this. And I kind of struggled to see the value for a while, but now I'm starting to think, okay, if we just amalgamate things, like you could do that with an RSS reader, but why not add some AI and have some fun with it and see what it turns into, huh? So shout out to Dino. And on that note, this step is really important because this AI we're adding into it now categorizes the content. It does stuff with the content. It's manipulating the data. And that's what is going to make this unique compared to just any old RSS feed reader. Okay. Very different functionality here. Very different value add. And we'll see soon here, it's going to create its own prompts. In fact, it already has these in here somewhere. So if you've AI prompts.typescript. So this contains specialized prompts depending on the content type. So news article, product review, case study, blog post, tutorial. And then here's the prompt. You are a content type classifier. Analyze the following article and determine its primary content type. So that's the first use case of the AI is just classify the content. What is it? We're going to provide a confidence score, 2-sentence summary, and reasoning for the classifications. We're going to get a reason why it should be that. And then it's going to respond in a JSON. So it's going to give us JSON data that we can then work with for our directory. And now we got different prompts based on what it is. If it's a blog post, focus on the primary value or insight being shared. If it's a tutorial, categorize as tutorials, focus summary on what readers will learn and achieve. Product review, news article. So you see we have all these different prompts depending on what it is. And it's going to classify it. Then it's going to write all this data for us. Yeah, and here's confidence thresholds. And what that confidence threshold just means, the confidence score, is where if there's a certain case where the AI is not exactly sure what it is, like it's very clear if it's a tutorial, it's very clear it's a blog post, but if it's not sure, it's just going to put it probably at low, 0.4 or lower. I mean, if it's 0.4 or lower, it's going to be flagged for review. So we'll see what the process is for that, but it might actually then go to OpenAI or something and get classification from another model. All right, boom. Core features implemented. We've already gone through a lot of that. Let's keep on building here. We're about to finish phase 2. So I'm really excited to get this going. So to finish off phase 2, we are going to orchestrate everything to work together. Okay? Let's start a new task, new conversation. We'll paste that in. Build a content processing function that takes RSS articles, runs them through the AI classification, right? The processor. It detects and filters duplicates. Great. Stores processed articles in the database. It handles rate limiting for AI API calls. Only processes articles from the last 30 days. Updates existing articles if content has changed. Provides processing stats and metrics for monitoring. Great. Make sure I go into architect mode. We'll send that off. And what's cool, like this is where the system design thinking is really important. This is why you want to have the AI help you figure out your prompts like we're doing here. Because ideally, this is going to run all on its own. It's going to be completely unsupervised and it's going to update all the time. Right? Pretty neat. Okay, so that happened surprisingly fast and probably just because everything was already there. It just needed to link some things together. I'm not sure exactly how it did it, but it did it. So now we're moving on to phase 3, Netlify functions. So let's copy that first prompt. Make sure we got a new conversation. Now we're creating a Netlify scheduled functions. Okay, so our backend is going to be the Turso database, but our front end is going to be Netlify, okay? A free plan of Netlify. And how Netlify works is it deploys your app, and it basically allows you to use these things called functions. Let's just leave it at that. And the functions, you get a certain amount every month. So in the free account, you get 125,000, and you can't exceed it. If you're on the starter plan, then you can't exceed it and they'll charge you. But you get 125,000 invocations per site per month. So, and then 1 million edge functions. So we just want to make sure we don't go over that. And if we're not mindful of those limits, then our AI might just try to do the best job possible, fast, efficient, and not even think about cost. So I've built into this prompt some bits about making sure it's optimized for the free tier, so we're not paying. So this function, not only do we want to stay inside the free tier constraints, but we want it to do a bunch of stuff, right? It's a function. So we want it to process all RSS feeds. We want it to update the database, include comprehensive logging in case there's errors, summary statistics, like there's a lot that it needs to do. Even cost monitoring and usage alerts. I'll be curious to see how it implements that. But that's what this phase is all about, because I like to look at it like your front end is kind of its own app. It just doesn't have a database, doesn't have a backend. There's nothing there. It could just have placeholder information. And then your backend is its own app, but it doesn't have an interface. But you could theoretically interface with it with the command line, for example. So the front end is an app that you throw on top of your backend app, and then together you have your web app. I don't know. I'm still working on that analogy, but that's how I see it. And so our front end is this Next.js application running on Netlify in the cloud, so to speak. So all the functionality just happens in the cloud, but then if it needs a file, it has to go to the backend. It needs data from a database, it has to go to the backend. Or if it needs a media file, it has to go to a bucket somewhere that's meant just for storing media. So I hope that makes sense. Roo has a question. Prioritize cost optimization, larger batches, more caching. Let's balance it. Yeah. So this is basically making the official automation of our entire app. So we've given it the RSS parsers, the processors, the data pipeline. Now we need to have a system to automate it so it works together right. All right, great. So we did some node package manner installs for the Netlify functions. And we even got our Netlify deployment variable set. We got a lot done in this phase here, and we still got another prompt. So now it's time to build the API routes. I'll start a new task. I'll make sure we're an architect. And basically the API routes, I'm probably not the person to explain it, but it's basically going to connect together all the little services we've made, the processes, the data pipeline automation. And so like I mentioned, the front-end app needs the data from the back-end app. The API routes are kind of like the connecting parts that make that possible. So let's let that roll. Woohoo! Our APIs are done. This is so cool. I haven't vibe coded anything in a while. Once again, thanks again for the inspiration, Dino. But this just feels good. We had a good plan. Good PRD. I'm getting more and more into this project as we go. So this is awesome. We got our APIs, filtering. We got all kinds of good stuff created. And all right, new task. Back to architect mode. And here we're going to start the interface itself. So once again, this is where it's going to be everything we see. Okay. We already got all the functionality, the functions, right? Those are already built inside of our framework app, but now we need to create the actual interface for interfacing with. So let's copy this first one. We'll explore it a little bit here. Create the main directory page, server-side rendering for SEO and performance. Normally you have client-side rendering with Next.js. We're going to switch that to server-side so we actually get page rendering. I'll show you that later. We want grid layouts of article cards, category filtering buttons, search functionality, infinite scroll or pagination, mobile responsive design using Tailwind with touch-friendly interactions, loading states, error boundaries, empty states with helpful messaging, sort options, total article count, and URL state management. I'm sending that in, and I just want to give you a sneak peek of the future. Article card component. This is where we're going to design a card where we can actually show a screenshot. And I'm going to use a screenshot that I have here on Vibe Builders. This was all a directory that I was just exploring. I wanted to learn more about data scraping and data processing. So we made this, sentiment score, vibe score, tags, and it just never, it didn't turn into something that got me excited. So in this case, in the next prompt, I'll show a screenshot of the card, right? Say, hey, we're going to make the card look like this. And then in the next prompt after that, I will actually attach screenshots. So we will use Claude Sonnet's vision feature to say, okay, we want to have these colors, this color scheme, this kind of font, whatever. Okay. And even say, like, oh, this is how we want to show. So that's what's going on with the design. Let's check on Roo. Map the existing AI categories to these display categories. I'm just going to YOLO this one because I don't even know what the current landing page looks like. Since users want to see articles immediately, we don't want to just show categories on the main page. We want to show articles. And I'm assuming that once the camera's off, I'm going to be working on a more intensive landing page that's just like more beautiful, that maybe follows kind of like a Substack format or something. But for now, we're just vibe coding the app. So let's let that go, and we'll come back for the next prompt when that is time. All right, so we've got all our new features implemented for our front end. We've got components in there. Let's start a new conversation here. We want to get our article card component prompt, paste that in there, and I'm also going to add some screenshots, just a basic screenshot, really. We'll make, yeah, I think this looks good. We're going to see how that looks. I'm actually having second thoughts that maybe we just want to let it YOLO it, but we'll just change the style sheet after. So yeah, I'm actually not going to give it a screenshot, but you can if you want. When you do that, you're going to just have to drag your screenshot file in here. And then once again, drag it in here and just hold down Shift and it'll show up. But yeah, I'm not going to keep that in there. We're kind of just going to see what it does. We can always change the template and design later. Here we go. Okay, so it had a few questions for me, and that was really about the design. Minimal, professional, or modern visual appeal with strong readability focus. And I actually responded 3 different ways and canceled it. When I finally kept the third one, I said, let me see both options and choose what works best. So it made our component architecture here. And yeah, we basically have 2 options here. It's planned 3 component variants. So now we're just going to go into code mode. And, you know, actually, I'm not going to go into code mode yet. I'm going to give it its final prompt here too. I'm going to copy that. And so while you're planning the interface still, set that, build a site header. We're going to call it vibebuilders.ai directory. I'm going to give it the brand, the file, the logo. We'll put these files in there. Okay. So I've copied this other page just because it hasn't done anything yet. It looks like it just designed everything. So while it's still in architect mode, I just want to say, like, use these logo files, the vibe score, the LLM score. I don't even know what's going to use it for, to be honest, but it's already making the mobile hamburger menu, dark light mode toggle, category filter. It's already doing all this stuff. So say, hey, while you're in architect mode, let's just make sure the colors are right, and we use these images too. So essentially, we're going through all of phase 4 now. This could all be done in the same conversation before we even execute once.
Yep.
Cool. Slide header design architecture. But yeah, this is going to be cool. Let's see how it does it. I guess I'll just do it now. I'll just say, start implementing the design plan. There we go. And we'll come back when that's done. All right, so I'm watching this go here. It's building all these components. And I just wanted to share something that Ken in our school community brought up once in one of our calls, and it stuck with me, is he really pays a lot of attention to each component he makes, and he'll watch the agent code it, and like he'll take a look at it after. And I'm trying to just show you a basic vibe code build for a YouTube tutorial, but if you're like really taking it seriously to build something, you want to take careful attention of each component as well. And sure, you might just be flying by the seat of your pants in the beginning, but at the same time, as this is all built, the more difficult it becomes to go back in time to maybe make some tweaks or changes. So this is just my one piece of friendly advice, and that is just pay attention as it builds, be present with it, and so you can make sure you don't have to go backwards later. Yeah, all right. Wow. All right, so I think it's finally time to take a look at what's going on here. npm install npm run dev. All right, let's open up localhost. Interesting. I definitely do not like this at all. We'll have to work on that later. All right, so that's just the design. I mean, I'd like to see the different examples of design options, minimal versus stylish. Maybe it forgot that part of the conversation. But yeah, I'm not too impressed with this. Okay, neat. So it made some cards here. And while it does need some work, it did a good job of copying the original. Okay. I'm not sure if everything is really activated yet, but it told me that it made 2 design styles, but I only see 1 design style. I don't see 2 design styles, only 1. And real quick, you can see this is something that I don't really see. I never saw this on Cursor, but Roo makes a little browser and it navigates to the site, to the page that it's fixing anyway. There are the design variants. They're there now. And it actually literally used it. It's gone now, but it says where it's going to click to investigate. So that's pretty neat. Okay, so it has 2 distinct design variants finished now and live. And it's showing us what are not shown in minimal, what are shown in the stylish, etc. So let's take a look. Okay, this is the minimal design content first. That's cool, I like that. Save, cool. This is the more stylish design. Nah, I like the stylish design, huh? I like all this. I mean, we don't need all this stuff, but I do kind of like it. Yeah, we'll keep the stylish design. Cool. So that's it for phase 4. Let's get ready for phase 5 where we deploy. Okay, so next up, before our deployment is really going to work, we need to run our database migration on Turso. So we need to create our database. And it's going to give you a database URL. Put that in your .env file. Just paste that into here, your database name.turso.io, and then click Create Token, choose Expires Never, and then what the token it gives you, you're then going to paste into your authentication token. So that's how we're going to get connected to Turso to run the script, the migration script. So let's copy this prompt. I'll paste that in and we'll create a database setup script for Turso. Okay, so yep, it wants me to run these npm database setup wizards. So let's check out what it's built for us here. Now I ran the script and we got an error, and I think it's because it can't find the .env file. So I copied this and I pasted it into here. And so the agent sees the error. The environmental validation is failing because it's not finding the .env file. So now it's fixing that. And once again, this might be a dance between copying and pasting the error until it finally debugs it and fixes it. And you have a migrated database and a deployed Netlify project. All right, cool. So it found the environmental variables. It tested the connection successfully. And now we're going to reset the database with sample data. Sure. Yes. No. Proceed. So that's kind of fun. Wow. Setup failed. Schema migration. No such table. Feeds. So, we'll just copy this. So yeah, we're going to paste that error there and see what it is. Okay, so let's get ready for our final task here for phase 5. First, we're going to finish setting up our Netlify deployment, which we kind of already started earlier, but we're going to go ahead and have it run now before we finally send it to Netlify. Okay, so our deployment configuration and all of that is more or less ready to go. So in order to deploy it now and make sure this all works, we need to create a Git repo. So this is always so much fun. We're going to make a new terminal with that little plus. We don't really need this so big either. And I'll make sure I'm in the right folder. Just to show, if you have a setup like this, the right folder is this one, AI Builders directory. It's not AI-powered RSS directory. So that's why I did CD into the right folder. CD means change directory. Once again, in AI Kept in School in the Architectural Literacy course, there's a crash. There's a lesson to learn all this stuff with the command line. So what we're going to do now is jump into the next prompt. And, you can copy all this. I like to do it one at a time. So we're going to git initialize. We're going to git add everything. And we're going to git commit with the message, everything is built and ready to deploy for the first time, right? That's the first commit. And now you can see it added all those files. And if we go over here to the source control tab, we can see that we have the first commit there and everything is built and ready to go. All right. It actually may even be that. Yeah, actually, maybe the AI agent did a commit earlier. Actually, that's interesting. I didn't even know that. So we have this all committed and now we need to give it a source. So all I have to do is go to github.com, click the plus, new repository, and we're going to call it AI Builders directory, AI-powered RSS directory. We're going to make this private, because I want you to build it on your own. Because you should have to build it on your own, right? This is all for learning. We already have everything in here. You know what? Let's make a git ignore in here. I'm going to make a new, we'll say, create a git ignore file. So we got this, and now we already have the repository. And so what we're going to do is push an existing repository. I'm going to copy that. And what this is going to do is add the origin of this remote GitHub repo, switch to the main branch, and then push to main. So I've got my git ignore file made there. And now I'll paste that. We'll add the origin. And it's on GitHub now. If I press refresh, suddenly you'll see everything. And now we go to Netlify, we add a new project, import an existing project from GitHub, find the name of your repo. Let's call it AIBD. Let's just call it Vibe Builders version 3. Branch to deploy is main. Everything is good here. And we do need to add environmental variables. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to import from a file. And the best way to do this here is copy your env.example, paste that in there, and you'll notice I still haven't changed anything. Okay, I don't have any API keys here. And then I go over here to project configuration, environmental variables, and you'll see every little variable that was in there. I can now edit, for example, OpenAI base URL. I can now edit that if I need to. I'll go ahead and put my OpenAI key, paste that there, and save the variable. Now you're going to do that for every variable. Now, there's another way to do this into your .env.example file and duplicating it, okay? I'm just going to copy and then paste it. And then I'm going to rename it to .n. So it'll be our local.n file. And here I can put in the same API keys, save it all, and then back in Netlify, import from a .n file, and all of these original values will be replaced with what I paste. Also, make sure you've got your feed URL set, at least for your MVP. And then when everything is pasted in here with all the actual variables, you'll also see this option down here, which is important. Make sure you check this update conflicts little ticker, because that means if there's something that's already there, we'll just update it, overwrite it instead of skipping it. And now our API keys are set, and we should be good to go to seeing if this will deploy. So I click over here, deploys. Looks like we had an issue. Completely normal. So I'll go ahead and click this why did it fail button. And I will copy that. And I will start a new chat. And I'll just say deployment error. And we'll paste that. And, you know, we should go into debug mode here. I'm feeling kind of lazy. I kind of just want to go into code mode, but let's go into debug mode. Okay, boom. Fix the Netlify deployment parsing error. So now each time we fix a deployment error like that, we have to git add dot and git commit fix deployment parsing error. Make that the message and git push. Now, every time git push happens from a new commit, Netlify is automatically going to update it. Let me show you real quick. Here in our deploys page, that one failed, right? At 7:11 p.m. Now, look how fast the new production shows up at 7:22 p.m. Yes, that took 11 minutes. You can see how long it's been that my day has been making this video. So now we see, will it make it or not? Will it have another deployment error? Stay tuned after this commercial message. And it didn't work. So, what's the error? We click why did it fail? And we paste it into Debug-Roo again. And you're now in the feedback loop of fixing deployment errors for Netlify. So hopefully this will be done quick. Sometimes it happens fast, sometimes it does not. It's the luck of the draw, I suppose. Okay, so we got something fixed. We're building again. Okay, so it's the following day. I was up late, lots of debugging, but I finally got it working. I'm going to show you what I had to go through. This is obviously going to be different for everyone. So first off, I had to get the database migration working with Turso, and it finally worked. Supabase, you can actually run a migration script inside Supabase's front-end interface, the dashboard, but I didn't see a way to do that with Turso, so I actually had to run this in the command line, and let me show you what happens there. That's it. So it could skip everything because it already did it, but we got all these fun emojis, database seeded successfully. So now if we go over to Turso, we can see now we have these tables, AI processing queue, articles, content classifications. Nothing's here yet. So we'll have to check out what happens. But then I had all of these Netlify deployment errors. Okay. And so some of that had to do with the Turso database, TypeScript. There was just a lot, but we fixed it and I got it published and I haven't looked at it yet. I want to do a live reaction, but look how many failures this took. Okay. So I just want to tell you that this literally took from 7:22 p.m. to 9:44. It took like an hour and 2.5 hours of debugging last night. I took some time off somewhere in there, right? Yeah, an hour and a half of debugging, and it finally worked. And it's still not going to be done, but at least we got it deployed, which means we can now move on to the other things like, making sure it works and adding SEO performance and doing a security audit, etc. So let's take a look. Oh. So let's review the function logs. All right. So once again, we continue the deployment now, new conversation. Let's say, Netlify error. It's deployed, but nothing showing up on the site. Let me just share that. What am I using? I also want to just mention Claude Opus helped me finally get this thing deployed. I had using Sonnet. I went over to Grok. I went over to GPT 4.1, but then I finally came back to Opus 4.1 and it finally did it. So, you know, you can't argue with the classics. So I'm going to keep debugging this and come back to it. And we'll be back as soon as we get something on that page. Okay, so we got it deployed. And this is where I leave you, pretty much, because there's a lot more work to do. You can see some images aren't showing up. I mean, all the images, really. And this is all just mock data, because the AI vibe coding agent just decides to put in mock data when it can't figure out, I don't know, what's not working. I don't even know why, but I gotta figure that out. And then, the save button, I'm gonna save. This is the MVP, so I don't think we need a save button. The dark mode thing doesn't work. And I want to make it all like really thin. I want it to be like this, like that width, whether it's mobile or desktop. I think this is just too wide. And yeah, there's just a bunch of things I'm going to do. So I'll tune back in when I'm done, but this is where, yeah, you're going to have a lot of work to do, just spicing things up. And I have other videos explaining how to do this. I think I used Cursor in those old videos, but really it's as simple as taking a screenshot of, for example, this button. Under Roo Code, start a new task. And because this is Roo Code, I have to bring the screenshot in here before I can drag it here. In Cursor, you can just drag the screenshot right in, which is really convenient. But in here, I'll just say, change the text of the button to white, right? Something super simple. And this is also when I can just npm run dev. So as it makes these changes, I can just follow them locally without having to deploy and do the git push and blah, 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 like every time there's a change. And that's really important to know too, because it just uses a lot of resources to keep doing all these deployments. And yeah, this error, what's going on? There's an API error. So I'm going to have to figure that out first. And yeah, we've built it now. So, yeah, I'll tune back in after I've cleaned it up, and good luck. Okay, so this is one important step that I didn't prompt, that we didn't have in our original prompts, that I'm going to have to add. We need to run the RSS processor script on our own to start populating the database. Otherwise, we're just going to get nothing but mock data, because it'll like, what I seem to notice is it's running in a feedback loop. Like, oh, we can't find the data. Something's wrong. Look at the database. The connection's fine. What's going on? And it's because I never specified, hey, run the script so we get some of these RSS articles into our database. So we're going to run this test processor. Okay, 2 out of 4 tests passed. So once again, confidence with the command line is huge. So we got all that connected. That's good. 16 total feeds. Good. Okay, so we'll say everything is good. Paste that there. Now we run this test processor. All right, so I'll copy all of these tests. Looks like we got some dependency issues. And while that's working, I'll show you, I came up with a new design that I really like. And it's just minimal and it's classy, and I like it a lot. Just one single image, and I feel like it really demonstrates the point of the whole directory, which is like, just read, just get the value from the content, read it, that's it. Okay, so this totally took a long time, and this is what you're in for, but it's pretty rewarding at the end. We finally got everything going. It's using Venice AI to do the AI classification. I gave my agent here basically a copy and paste of this terminal window to say, hey, is everything going well? It said, yes, we got a good confidence score. We're using good efficient token usage. Everything's looking good. 31 batches. So that's happening every 4 hours. That'll be interesting. And then there's some recommendations it's got to optimize. So it's going to do that. But overall, it's cool. And then here in Turso, we can see in the articles table, we've got all these articles. And what's interesting is that it decided in my debugging process that we're going to add the articles first as like, I think it's putting them, I don't know where it's doing it, but it adds the articles first before it processes them. But I actually don't see anything else going on. So I don't know what all that is for. But we got the articles. And so let's see. AI summary, nothing yet. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. So just continuing figuring this out. And eventually we'll get it plugged into this sexy interface. And we are going to have an RSS powered, an AI curated RSS directory. Okay, so this is it for now. I'm about to be doing some traveling for like a week, so I need to wrap up this video. It's not exactly where I want it to be, but it's pretty close. And it's looking, I like the design. We went back to these cards. We have this fun little shuffling articles button, which I think is cool. And what I have going on right now but I ran out of Claude Code credits, is when you click read article, it's not actually going to bring you straight to the article. And by the way, I removed this freaking Adweek RSS feed. Everyone's like, oh, LLMs are going to index the SEO content. Yeah, not a good idea, okay? I don't know how Claude decided that would be a good feed to put in here. But anyway, I took care of that in the latest edition, and now I'm just waiting for Claude to come back online because I have all this new processing happening. But basically, it's going to make its own page, and it's going to create AI-generated SEO content from the scraped data, and it's going to be more like a directory. So yeah, it's going to be pretty neat. Maybe by the time you see this, you'll see what it looks like, and it'll look cool. But yeah, that's how you do it. That is an AI-powered RSS directory build. So thanks for watching. I think this video is really long. I haven't edited it yet. Check out the school. I'm going to be doing another version of a directory like this, but it uses an N8N workflow to do most of the data scraping. So subscribe if you want to stay tuned to these new projects I'm building, if you like building directories with AI stuff, and I'll see you soon.